So this will be my final screencast of the overall 13-week program and of my time at Bishop's doing the education program. So I was completing my stage at Alexander Galt Regional High School. I had 3 groups of students whom I taught English, language arts, and ethics to. I had a level 4 enriched class of 32 students, a level 4 regular class of 22 students, and a level 3 regular class of 37 students. Alexander Galt is considered to be in a rural urban community. It is located in the small town of Lennoxville, Quebec. The school population is roughly 960 students, of which most of them come from surrounding farming communities. It's one of the 3 Anglophone public schools in the Estrie region. In the first 2 days, I observed the classes and got to know my students. During my 6-week stage at Richmond Regional High School, I was very nervous to speak in front of students, and as a result, I did not take time to foster a relationship with them. Even though I came quickly out of my shell in the stage, I did not connect with the students as much as I would have liked to. Walking into my 13-week stage, I decided to make that my goal. I was going to foster relationships and connect with each of my students. I think in doing that, it gave me a lot of confidence and helped me to be my true self in front of them. I used to always believe that if I took on the behaviorist teaching style, the students would listen to me better. However, what I learned from the stage is that if I talked to them on their level and was realistic with them, took time to listen to them, and was active or walking around the classroom, they respected me more. I do not believe that taking on the role of one teaching style is beneficial at all. So don't try to be either behaviorist, cognitivist, or constructivist. To adopt one teaching style is silly thinking because we do not live in a utopian world. Nothing prepared me better for the teaching world than the stage itself. I took the theories I learned in class and applied them to the real world. I quickly learned that students are not predictable and everyday routine was anything but mundane. Depending on your class size, students, and learning disabilities, I would have to adopt different teaching techniques. For the most part, I had large class sizes, so constructivist teaching styles was at times very difficult for me to do. I think the important part I learned from my stage is that at times you need to be a behaviorist, at other times a constructivist, and lastly, a cognitivist. There is no one style that should be adopted because your classes change from year to year. This stage gave me the confidence I needed and ensured me that I was in the right profession. I loved going to the stage each day, and I was really sad when I found out I would be ending my stage 3 weeks earlier. Throughout my stage, I carefully worked on each of the teaching competencies. So to start with the teaching competency 1, I think this competency I excelled in because I knew the requirements of the QEP very well for ELA. My associate teacher and I went over exactly what the requirements for level 3 and 4 were. I was familiar with what I needed to teach the students in order for them to prepare for their end-of-year exams. My mini enabling tasks, so responses, reflections, worksheets, and texts, set the students up with the proper tools to be able to complete the culminating tasks of infographics, articles, essays, and lastly, speeches. The culminating tasks were essential to guiding the students to feel prepared for their final ministry exams. To communicate clearly in the language of instruction, both orally and in writing, using correct grammar in various contexts related to teaching would be the second competency. So this competency at times I struggled with because I'm naturally a shy person in situations I do not feel fully comfortable in at first. In the first 2 weeks of my stage, I was shy to speak in front of the students. Therefore, my communication may have not as been clear to them as I would have liked it. Throughout the stage, I quickly gained my confidence and it showed. I felt confident to speak in front of the students and when I was teaching material. If there was a concept I did not understand, I would educate myself first before teaching it to the students. The students had a series of worksheets and exit cards to complete, which helped me to see if they understood the material that was being taught. If most of the students answered the worksheets and the exit cards properly, then it was a direct reflection from them of their understanding of the concepts I teach, which means I taught something clearly to them. So competency 3, 4, and 5, I grouped them together because I think they all really link well together. So each of my LES was constructed 2 weeks minimum prior to teaching the students in the material. I decided to have it ready for 2 weeks before because it gave me time to make sure my material was well prepared and that I had checked it over with my associate teacher. We worked really well together, and she was an essential contributing factor to my success and growth as a pre-service teacher. Each of my LESs had mini enabling tasks and a final culminating task. They each had a theme and targeted the 3 ELA competencies: talk to learn, read, and production. I kept 3 separate Excel worksheets with class lists, as I would record each and every assignment or activity I had them complete and what competency I was targeting. Once these marks were recorded on the spreadsheet and were thoroughly checked over by my associate teacher, I would upload them to Google Classroom where the students could receive their marks. I'm not somebody that likes to correct through Google Classroom, and the students know that, so I would print out their assignments. I would correct them by hand, but I would also include a copy on Google Classroom, as that's how Alexander Galt works. I explained to the students on day 1 of my teaching how their marks would be broken down, and I think they really enjoyed that because they got to know exactly how their marks worked. And I gave them direct examples. Okay, so in competency 1, I'll be looking for your in-class participation, your group discussions. Are you coming to class prepared? Is your phone out, etc.? And I had a unit outline on Google Classroom, which was basically an online agenda that they could see what we were doing each class, and there they could see which competencies we were targeting. So it was very clear for them. Competency 6. This is one of the key competencies I chose to focus on, and it was directly linked to my individual action research plan. I wanted to see if structuring my classroom in a certain way would affect technology consumption in the classroom. I installed it on the first day of my teaching, my own classroom routine and rules. I explained to the students each competency, as I was saying earlier, and the breakdown of the marking system. This made it clear for the students to see how they received their marks and how to improve. I had a similar teaching style as my associate teacher, which I believe made the transition smoother for the students. I really liked how she always had the to-do list on the chalkboard, and each day she would update it. This way, the students came into each class and they knew exactly what they would be learning. They also could always look at the unit outlines, which were posted on Google Classroom, and I told them they were subject to change based on what we finish in class. If we don't finish something, it'll be pushed to the next class. So they always knew what we were doing, and their parents can see through Google Classroom as well what we were doing. Teaching competency 7. This competency I struggled with, as the class sizes at Alexander Galt are rather big. Students with IEPs in my classes did have access to accommodating tools. However, the majority of them did not want to use them. I adapted my teaching by switching up how I teach the material. In one of my classes, I had a student who was partially deaf and wore a cochlear implant. She sat at the front of the classes. She did not want special accommodations and made that clear with the school. I always made sure when I was teaching that I would use visuals to help an impaired student. I'm a visual learner myself, so if I was teaching by PowerPoint, I would color code important terms, concepts to help the students. I used many examples because the students found learning by examples to be helpful. Each handout was posted through Google Classroom. Students with learning difficulties could access the tools on their Chromebooks to help them. I always kept hard copies as well because some students did not have Chromebooks or they were broken. So one way or the other, they could choose how they wanted to do their work. Competency 8. This competency is one that I'm confident to say most teachers in the workforce have to be comfortable with. Technology is considered to be essential in a child's life to be successful in their education, as it is integrated into the education system now. Students at Alexander Galt are given Chromebooks to use for the duration of their high school time there. Assignments are to be graded and submitted through Google Classroom that each teacher has access to do, and each teacher has to give the grades back through Google Classroom. So it's not a matter of choice. That is how it's set up. So you have to get on board with it. The technology was used every day in my classes, whether it be through an interactive video hook or assignments and handouts. I'm someone who prefers paper and hard copies. So I made sure to have some of each. When I corrected assignments, as I said earlier, I would print them out and correct them by hand. However, I would submit the marks on Google Classroom, and that's how Alexander's Galt is set up. So competency 9, 10, 11, and 12, I grouped together as I found they also directly linked together. During my 13-week stage, I went to parent-teacher night with my associate teacher. I found it very informative, and I was able to give feedback to parents on their child's work. If a parent needed to be emailed about, example, a child not doing their work, my associate teacher would do it. Each Tuesday, a department meeting or a general teacher meeting would be held. So one Tuesday would be department meeting. You'd be split up amongst what subject you teach. And the following Tuesday, it would be a meeting with the whole school, with the whole teaching staff. These meetings were a chance for teachers to talk about the school environment, rules, and regulations in the school. I found these meetings very informative for pre-service teachers in general, as it gave us a glimpse into the reality of our chosen profession. I made sure to make time to get to know the staff in my cycle, which I was teaching in cycle 2. Galt is a really big school. The 2 cycles are split on each half of the school. I was teaching in cycle 2, therefore I got to know blue and green staff members quite well. I developed a great rapport with colleagues who were near my class, and they offered to help me if ever I needed it. I tried to meet the principal on 2 different occasions, however, she was not present in the school much. I was always at school by 8 a.m., which allowed me to have time to prepare for the day. I like feeling prepared, so I was always in the school. I was always in my classroom or in the staff room. I made sure to stay in my classroom 3 lunch hours a week for students who needed extra help, and they would have the opportunity to come in. In conclusion, I really enjoyed my time at Alexander Galt, and I was sad to end the stage early, but I do hope to get a job there in the future. I enjoyed the stage, and it was a great opportunity to put theory we've learned in class into practice.